Hey, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm sorry I didn't call you back. I was sleeping, but my dad went in the hospital again. So
Oh no. Oh no, I know what that feels like. So I hope he's all right.
Stage 4 cancer, but he's a trooper. He's hanging in there.
Stage 4.
How's your mom doing?
You know, Mom, we actually went to the doctor today. She's turned the corner for the better. You know, I mean, literally, it's been 6 weeks of her not being herself. And yesterday, you know, to see her reading, you know, after 6 weeks of not doing anything was a joy. So I think she's turning a corner. At least she's stable. So, you know, thanks for asking. She's doing all right. You know, I can't, no complaints there. Nice to see Scott and Clay Brielle in the room. You know, nice. Thank you for joining us. We'll certainly get started immediately. Big Sean, what's going on? What's going on? David, how are you? Well, while we're waiting for everyone to come, I'm going to ping a few people into the room. Just to kind of set the stage, and then we'll pick up right where we left off from last week. And that was a question that was posed. I believe it was a brother by the name of Jose who brought it up last week, who was looking at a Harris poll, and this poll was indicating that African Americans are more aware of cryptocurrency than everyone else. And, you know, certainly have a lot to say about that subject because, you know, I'm certainly promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially when it comes to cryptocurrency. So it's definitely something for us to talk about. I'm going to ping some folks in this room. If you know anyone that you know needs to get off zero and start talking about some cryptocurrency basics, please ping them into this room as well. Let me share some folks. Oh, they got some new sharing options. Pretty cool. All right, ping a couple more people, one more person. Excellent. Yes. So yeah, it's been quite the week, you know, quite the week, you know, especially with all of the fear around you know, the war and so on and so forth. It's been of the fear around you know, the war and so on and so forth. It's been that cryptocurrency is the way that Russia is going to stay alive, and they're going to use Bitcoin, you know, to, you know, circumvent all of the different sanctions that are being placed on them as a nation. And I say, you know, that is the farthest thing from the truth. You know, Bitcoin is definitely something that is going to protect the wealth of people. But you know, the way that I see it, and certainly, you know, invite anyone to share their opinion. But the way that I see it, you know, the one thing that cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin, promotes. Hey, Jose, what's going on? Cryptocurrency promotes freedom and democracy. It's really democratizing assets in a way that's digital. It's transparent. It's actually the opposite of communism. It's the opposite of socialism. You know, cryptocurrency in the form of Bitcoin. You know, it really can defeat communism because it would liberalize the economy of you know, of Russia as we know it. Imagine if the people of Russia, you know, were independently financially able to move in ways that they decide, and the state didn't decide. It would be more aligned with, you know, our nation. And when I say our nation, I'm talking about free nations, democracies as we know it, America, you know, and not just first world nations. You know, all free nations are what I'm really speaking for. And I know there's certain political unrest in Africa. Not They don't want to disturb the bear. They don't want to poke the bear. I totally understand what's going on, and I think now is a great time for us to really use cryptocurrency, have and hold cryptocurrency, understand the facts about what it is and what it isn't, and be prepared for fear, um, you know, doubt and uncertainty. To, you know, the FUD is going to start spread with regards to different things. I'm not sure. I know there's a State of the Union speech tonight. Anyone knows what time it's going to start? Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, I got to hear it, because just so you know, we're waiting for the Fed to drop, you know, to drop the needle on regulations regarding cryptocurrency. It's coming, and certainly as we look for that, I really just pray that, you know, that the regulations support safety and consumer protection. You know, those are the things we want, right? We want consumer protection, we want safety, we want all of those kind of things. We don't want, you know, fear to be spread, or for them to figure out new ways to try and, you know, lock down cryptocurrency. The one thing that is for sure is that they're not going to be able to stop Bitcoin as we know it. They can regulate around it. And just like April brought up last week, and thank you, April, so much for bringing that up. I didn't see it before you brought it to my attention. And when I finally understood what was happening in regards to, you know, the Canadian government's request to what was it, Nanchuk? Yes. Yeah, so they requested regulate, you know, those that use its service, but it's a decentralized service. And so they not only do not, you know, regulate or restrict who can use their service. It's the purpose. It's the way they're structured. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, how regulation changes the landscape. You know, and I'm talking about for assets as well as cryptocurrencies, and how the world is going to look at cryptocurrencies, because I think cryptocurrencies are here to stay. Now, what form they take is going to be interesting. And they're going to start to compete with nation states, right? Because nation states and their centralized digital currency are going to get confused with cryptocurrency. And so that's an important topic for us to really kind of talk about tonight. You know, I'm going to certainly talk about this, and then I'm also going to continue with the topic that I believe Jose started from last week. So after I finish, you know, my opening statements about, you know, the current political unrest and cryptocurrency, I'm going to transition right into, you know, essentially a review of that article that was started by USA Today, and featured a Harris poll, um, you know, saying that African Americans are more aware of cryptocurrencies than anyone else. So I think I read that it was 23 or 24% compared to 11%. You're correct. Hope, tonight, could you just briefly talk about, like, you know, right now, because of this political stuff that's happening, it's a little, like, of course I want to continue dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin and crypto, but about with banks in America, and I'm sure you know a lot more about this than me, but they are legally allowed to not give us our money if they want to, and I don't
know how much that's true and how much.
So you're talking about exchanges.
With banks in America, I guess, in order to stop everybody from going to the bank to withdraw all of their money at the same time, like banks are legally allowed to keep some of our money, I don't know, permanently or just temporarily, or like a percentage of it. I don't know. I just know that I was reading something like that and didn't get a chance to finish it. But I had heard something like that, but I thought it was crazy. How can the banks keep our money if we put our money in the bank and it's savings or checking account and it's our money? Like, can't I just go get it out anytime I want to? But apparently that's not true. It's funny, but I'm going to share a little anecdote, so that's the difference between centralized and decentralized, currencies. So when we talk about centralized currencies, such as the American dollar, the euro, when we talk about these centralized currencies, the reason why Satoshi Nakamoto created this vision for Bitcoin was because there was a failure, there was a loss of trust. So when we think about the role of money in our society, it's a very central role, right? And so in terms of this vision that was cast by this ominous figure, Satoshi Nakamoto, the quote unquote creator of Bitcoin, when we reflect on that, we have to say, um, we have to look at the pain points that existed, beta, alpha, beta, and then it was ready for the market. And not that the launch of Bitcoin was without flaw. It definitely had flaws in the beginning, but it certainly has come to scale. It has grown to scale. And just answering your question, April, there's a distinct difference between a currency that cannot be regulated, cannot be copied, and cannot be hacked, to a currency that is essentially, more inflationary than deflationary. Um, and especially when the Fed can just print unlimited amounts of money, it seems to be backed by nothing because, they went from dollar diplomacy to dollar hegemony. And when we think about what's happening right now with our currency, and this is not just American money, it's a worldwide currency, especially since no country right now is backing their money by gold or things like that. Um, we're kind of in a funny place in our world history, right? So when a bank um, says that you're not able to get your money, and I don't know how many of you have gone through this, but me and my business partner have gone through this a number of times when we put in a deposit, a significant deposit, and they'll say this deposit is not available for a holding period, right? And some of that is reasonable and some of it is not reasonable, and we continue to challenge it because we know those rules apply to different people differently, right? It doesn't have criminal origin. They know it's cleared. It's cash. It's sitting there, but they say no, you don't have access to it. How many times have you gone to use an ATM card and all of a sudden, people say, because you just bought a big screen TV for $1,200, they want to make sure that your card is okay. And for the most part, I like those protections, right? I'm not saying that, when there's patterns that go against my normal patterns, that I don't want people stopping me from or stopping loss of my funds. Don't get me wrong. What I'm demonstrating is that there's a difference between centralized systems and decentralized systems. In decentralized systems, believe it or not, you are your own bank. You have to be responsible for the loss, for your gain, for the management of your funds. And to your point, April, that you made earlier, there 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 is definitely a need to be vigilant. And what you're saying about hackers out there trying to steal funds from other people, this is real. And this is real across the board. I mean, I'm seeing a super increase in terms of nefarious behavior across the board, not only in cryptocurrency, where some real shady characters are doing some real ominous things, but when I'm talking about it, even in traditional finance, people who are trying to buy AU, and people who are trying to do to trade different um, assets, or even beware of a person who comes to you with a bag of cash, right? Because how do you know that's real cash, right? It could be fraudulent cash, right? So there's your concern, April. I think it's a real concern. I think you know and I don't think that cryptocurrency takes away the concern. I just think that it forces us to kind of double down in terms of what we know and what we don't know. The days of us buying cryptocurrency and leaving it in exchanges, those days are over, right? I see some friends come in here. So I see Nikki, I see Joseph, I see a few people come in. Yeah, so the days of keeping things on the exchanges are over. I don't really think that we'll ever go back to that. Nikki, how you doing? I'm doing well. Thanks for inviting me in. Of course, of course. Um, yeah, so those days are over. I really think that we're at a point right now where it's really up to us to really figure out how we are planning for not only our present, but how are we planning for the future? And I really believe, for example, the same future that I presented in regards to how Bitcoin can be used to protect a family, protect your household, in case what April described happens in America. I think there's a role of having diversity in how you hold your assets. I don't believe everything, you shouldn't have all your money in Bitcoin. I'm definitely not that guy. I'm not a maximalist, right? I believe in diversity. I believe you should have a variety of assets. Why? Because just like April was saying, when the power goes out, now what are you going to do? There's no electricity. How do you now trade? Right. So it's nice to have some fiat. It's nice to have some other assets, in order to protect yourself during times of unrest, right? However, I still think what I projected for Afghanistan during the time when we were about to pull out is true for Ukraine and even for Russian citizens, right? Because look at Putin. Putin, in his own way, is he's doing harm to his not only himself but his country, right? The sanctions are going to definitely put his people, in a lot of risk, right? Because they're stopping him from stopping NATO countries from purchasing, Russian oil, Russian exports. I heard about bars across, NATO countries refusing to serve Russian liquor. I mean, this is some real stuff. This is an economic war that's been going on a long time. And certainly I support the people of Ukraine, and their ability to fight for their own freedom. And I just really hope that, no funny business goes on, and that they, what happens is fair, right? um, but who can say what's fair in warfare? But I really think the sanctions are going to have teeth, and no cryptocurrency is going to stop that from having teeth. Think about it. Putin has $100 million yacht, right? Not that his yacht couldn't, his yacht is an asset, right? But the yacht needs gas, and yes, I'm sure he can refine his own gas for his own yacht. But beside his own natural fuel is purchased worldwide, right? He's going to pull out a credit card and so on and so forth, or cash. I'm sure he has tons of that. And I'm sure he has a number of other assets that he can use for payment. But my point to you is that cryptocurrency is not going to stop Putin, or be a safe haven for him to protect, you know, um, his people, and pay for his army, and so on and so forth. Those tanks are running out of gas right now, and we see it, right? So cryptocurrency is not the enemy of our people, or a friend to Russia and supporting them against Ukraine. I think it protects people. I think it protects freedom and democracy. So those are my thoughts. Not sure what everyone else thinks. I'm happy to take any questions at this time on that before I go into another topic. And if there's no questions, I'm just going to go right into that Harris poll that was brought up by Brother Jose last week. Brother Jose, what you brought up was a interesting article, and boy, do I wish that were really the truth. And when I say really the truth, I like to engage people. I engage people all over the world, in different communities all over the world. And I can tell you this, that the Harris poll and what they sampled was very interesting. And I think for millennials, that poll might be right on. It might be right on point. However, overall, in terms of we're talking about, especially people in communities of color. There's a disparate amount of people of color who are living in poverty, right? And when people are living in poverty, these folks are not, their first thing is not to, figure out what the best investment is, right? Um, and it's unfortunate, but it's true. So when I look across our community, and I look at folks who are poor, no matter what color they are, the first thing that they're doing is, when we think about survival, they're thinking about food, right? I sit on board of an organization that has that really is it's in upstate New York. It's based out of the city of Schenectady, the first city in America to have electricity. And in this particular nonprofit, it's called Youth Life Support Network. It's been 10 years. I've been there from the beginning, and this nonprofit is essentially connecting the dots and helping people, or helping that community to stop death by gun violence, so that youth are not dying by gun violence in the streets of Schenectady. They've almost eliminated death by gun violence in the city of Schenectady. It's down to single digits, like 1 and 0, for the past several years, because of their good work. My point to you is that their success is based upon a couple fundamental principles. And principle number one is that everyone wants to succeed, right? So everyone, man, woman, and child, everyone wants to succeed. And the research, I love to get into research. Research tells me that all day, every day, everybody wants to succeed. They're going to start to get in. They're going to start to make bad decisions, and that principle I've seen work for men, women, and children. And I've seen men, women, and children make bad decisions because they weren't working. They didn't have the proper family upbringing, right? Again, I know I've seen this in my own reality, but I'm telling you, the broad brush that they painted, that there's this broad awareness of financial literacy across African American communities, I think is very, very far from the truth. especially in the communities that I can tell you some specific communities of New York that I'm very, very familiar with. I'm talking about the 5 boroughs in Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, the Bronx. Uh, when we talk about these communities of color, even you go out in upstate communities, you're talking, disparate numbers of African Americans who are living in poverty, and dying, of things that, we don't want the average person to die from, right? So, I think the for millennials for the 4,000 people they sampled, their poll results are statistically valid. However, I think there's a broader conversation, to be had when it comes to awareness of financial literacy. I'm curious to think what your thoughts are, Chris. What do you think about that?
Sorry.
No worries.
He just jumped. My brother just got home. I was half paying attention to what you're talking about. I jumped in late. I'm sorry, man.
No worries, no worries. Sean, what are your thoughts about what I was saying in regards to?
To be honest, my younger, cousins and my nephew, all those, I would say out of 10, 12 of them, they all are at least very aware of cryptocurrency, and I would say more than half are investing in it. And that's come from the neighborhoods and parts of the country and things of that nature. So I could see it, at least in my world anyway, as somewhat accurate. Now, when you get a little bit older, up into maybe our age range, going into like the 40s and 50s, things like that, it's a little bit less. But I definitely could say that, our millennials are definitely up on it. It's definitely, especially in the last year and a half, become more part of their everyday way of life, especially the gamers and the people that are already kind of in the metaverse because of those different things. So it's definitely a very interesting poll. I definitely like, the fact that we're in it at least in some way or another. And now I think it's up to people like us to help take it home, and really get them engaged at a real high level.
Agreed. And so, even when we think about it, right? And this, I go back to the on-chain metrics. I like to look at what's happening when I look at the blockchain. How many people are actually holding cryptocurrency? How much are they holding? So I took a look at the on-chain metrics, and I can look at it right now. And if you're interested, there's a wonderful service called Glassnode. I like to use it, and I use a number of other, even looking right at the blockchain and starting to scrape data directly. But I took a look at the amount of Bitcoin wallets that had $46 or less, right? And right now on the blockchain, um, there's, less and less people, that have more and more money stored in Bitcoin. And what was being shared on the news today, on Squawk Box today, was that they were saying that, there's a interest by Russian and Ukrainian citizens to really try to protect their wealth from a run on the banks, right? So when you think about the run on the banks, as April described, I think that's a very serious reality for, especially when there's political and civil unrest and times of war. Banks can shut down. Look what happened during the subprime mortgage crisis. We had what, 200 banks in America that got shut down, that went out of business, right? So we know that banks can go belly up. So it's important for us to kind of hedge those bets, to kind of protect ourselves. How do we protect ourselves? I really believe that holding a diverse portfolio with various assets, including real estate, right? You want shelter, right? So having shelter will protect you, but also having other assets such as gold, physical gold. I still believe physical gold has a place in our society for now, right? And then digital gold in the form of Bitcoin. I think, these three assets, those are my choices. So now I bounce that question to you, Chris, because I know you promote a number of different philosophies like that. What assets do you promote?
So, like you said, diversify. I'm not 100% crypto. I have my precious metals. I got gold, silver, and platinum. People don't really think about. And my brother kind of got me into it, and I never really thought about it at the time. When he was buying all this stuff, I'm just seeing him just kind of like blowing all this money. But then 5 years later, you circle back around and you see what those cars are worth, and honestly, most of them have appreciated more than the price of gold. Not as much as Bitcoin, but yeah, I mean, I like you said, diversifying. Whatever floats your boat, really. But yeah, not the volatility that it brings. You don't want to be 100% crypto, but bank runs are obviously a very real thing. We've seen it in our own country. Can't rule it out. People always say it's not going to happen to us, but it can happen to you at any moment. Who knows what next week brings with the war? There's anything waiting around the corner. You never know.
No, I totally agree, and I don't get me wrong. I like other assets. I like stocks. I like mutual funds. I like a number of different financial assets. Right, I really do, and and fiat. It's depending upon where you are. And I like to travel. So when I travel, the first thing I do is I like to exchange money. And if any of you in the room do travel, you know the rules, right? Definitely not to, you're not going to exchange all your money at the airport, right? Because that's where you get ripped off, right? So so you want to make sure you find the proper places to exchange your current. Having some fiat is important. Now, if you're in El Salvador, you'll be fortunate because there's Bitcoin ATMs everywhere. And believe it or not, you can buy bear with Bitcoin in El Salvador. It's not a good thing, and that's the title of my book. Don't buy beer with Bitcoin, and it shocks me every time I see something silly like that. People actually taking precious Bitcoin and using it in a non-precious kind of way, in a frivolous kind of way to buy something like bear. And I'm telling you, not everyone understands how precious Bitcoin really is. And it's one of those things that I really think it's important for us to really pay attention to, because the more that can really spread the right way to do this, the right way to use cryptocurrency, the right way to hold cryptocurrency, it will protect us during times when there's fear, uncertainty, and doubt being cast. And right now, we're in that time, right? So, a lot of you in the room, I see a lot of familiar faces, so thank you guys for coming back. But if you're new to cryptocurrency, you've never owned cryptocurrency, you're in the right place. So please, certainly raise your hand if you have any questions. That's what I'm here for. I'm here and there's a number of great supporting folks on the stage that have some experience with cryptocurrency. Chris, thank you for joining me, brother. I appreciate it.
Stuff to hold on to other than just precious metals and things like that. But another thing that I have in my safe are seeds, actually. I used to be a chef, so I don't know if it's just the chef in me that jumped on this like 2 years ago. But as soon as all this stuff happened, that was like the first place my mind went was buy seeds, put them in the safe, because when inflation hits, like, it's not just about like markets, but like obviously preserving your wealth. Food. The cost of living is food.
Wow.
Yeah, I put seeds in my safe 2 years ago, and I kind of wish I kind of joined up with some farms. A lot of farm co-op, initiatives where you can buy half a pig. You can buy chickens, and you own them, but they stay on the farm. You're paying for them to be fed, and when they go to slaughter, they're yours. That requires space, obviously, but yeah, there's other means outside the box stuff. I know I'm a crypto dude. It's the crypto channel. I just wanted to throw that out there, though.
No. You see, the thing about it, and again, I think when we are in these kind of uncertain times, many times people don't get into the fundamentals, but you just threw something out that was really fundamental. We got to eat, right? Food is a essential part of who we are. You can't eat cryptocurrency, and the fundamental flaw in cryptocurrency is the following, is that in order for me to transact with you, I need some kind of electricity, some kind of communication, right? If there's a disruption of communication networks, guess what? We could, not that you're going to lose your cryptocurrency. Don't let me spread that FUD in this room. Don't get me wrong. But my point, yes, and the node that I operate, I have a full copy of the blockchain saved to my node. And the purpose of that is so that the reason I do that is that I don't have to trust anybody, right? I have a lot of respect for Chris. I have a lot of respect for Sean and April. And if they told me that they wanted to do a transaction, I would trust them, no problem. However, having my own node, I don't have to trust them because I have a copy of the transaction on my own computer. Right. So there's a way that you want to get into cryptocurrency. And one of the ways is to really understand what it is and what it isn't. Right. It is definitely a store of value, especially when we're talking about cryptocurrency. Yes, there's other applications. It's great in a bunch of different applications. NFTs are changing the world as we know it, right? In terms of how we can engage with different types of assets. The traditional trading cards are a thing of the past, right? Now we're talking about interactive trading cards that can unlock different content just by once you engage it on from the blockchain. It'll unlock off-chain type activity. You can buy merchandise. They're buying houses and apartments, and so there's a lot of ways to engage with cryptocurrency. I have young cousins that do gaming, and they're making thousands of dollars playing games, right? So there's a lot of ways that cryptocurrency is relevant, not only for children but for adults, right? You see entire nation states that are backing their own currency. And trust me, I don't recommend that, because the next 10, 12 years, right? And when you have crazy folks like Putin pointing military grade nuclear weapons at people, right? We know that our future is going to be disrupted by that level of insanity. We know that. So what Chris said is absolutely facts, right? I'm telling you, you want to hold assets such as Bitcoin in your portfolio. And how do you do it? You do it with cold storage. What is cold storage? Cold storage means that you use the blockchain. In fact, what I'm going to do in coming weeks, in the next couple weeks, I'll schedule a private seminar. It's going to be a free seminar. I'll do it, like on a Sunday afternoon, and I'll spend a couple hours showing you guys how to do cold storage directly on the blockchain, right? No expenses at all. And I'll show you the private way to do it, the most secure way to do it, so that, essentially you'll have NSA grade security and practices to store your Bitcoin on the blockchain. That's one way to do it, and I'll hold a seminar and show you guys how to do that. Another way to do it is to buy a nano ledger. Now, the nano ledger, the X or the S, is a great way to do it. And just so you guys know, when you do that, what's stored on the Nano X and the Nano S, it looks like a USB drive. A lot of people get confused. They think that all their information is on it, and if they lose it, they lose it. And it's not true. If you lose that Nano X or S, your information is not lost. Because essentially your cryptocurrency is still stored on the blockchain. So as long as you maintain your private keys, you can go buy another device, restore all of your information to it. That's the same way that this type of technology works, but you don't want it connected. You don't want to leave it on a wallet on your phone. You don't want to leave it on the exchange. Anything connected to the internet is a vulnerability. You want to make sure you understand those kind of fundamentals, right? Those fundamentals will keep you safe and will help you weather some of the storms that are ahead. But we have to think fundamentally. We have to think how we protect not only our community, and I hate to be kind of this survivalist, but that's a part of my history. I'm definitely that kind of guy. I'm not a mountain man, but I like camping. I don't need to be connected to right to live my life. I can go live out in the wild. Why? Because my family's from the Caribbean, and literally, I know how to. You guys have seen those shows, Naked and Afraid. I think I could do that.
Hey, I hope I just wanted to say something that if you're in New York City, there's a nonprofit organization that will come to your backyard and create a garden with vegetables and fruits and stuff like that. And they will do all the work all summer long, and they will give you a portion of it. I don't know what the percentage is. Like you get 50-50 or whatever. They keep some and you keep some, and they sell some in markets. So they just use your space and they create gardens of food. And also, if you're in New York City and you would like to maybe not be a full-fledged prepper, but during these tough times, like we don't know what's going to happen. But there's something on Facebook called New York City Apartment Preppers. I just learned about it. So I know it's crypto, but I'm excited that we're talking about these things because again, we need to be prepared with different assets, and food is an asset.
Who's fundamental thinking in this day and age? And so no, thank you for dropping that, because you're absolutely true. That is absolute facts. If we don't have food, then we'll fall apart as a society. And so thank you for dropping that as well, because I grew up, as I told you, I grew up with Caribbean parents. I'm a first generation American, and I grew up farming in New York City, in the big city. In my backyard, we would grow our own corn and spinach and all that kind of stuff. And in a crypto basics room, people are like, why are we talking about food sustainability? But I think there's a lot of different dimensions to sustainability. We got to think about economic sustainability, but we also should be thinking about how do we survive as a people, right? How do we survive as a people? I think from a and I'm talking from communities of color perspective. Why? Because I'm trying to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in cryptocurrency. When we think about different poor communities, especially throughout our country, but I'm a primary New Yorker, so I like to think from a New York vantage point, just to share that perspective. I really think there's a need for us to be self-sustaining and growing your own food. I remember as a child, I used to hate the process of reaping and cleaning all the spinach and cutting it up and bagging it. And we had a deep freezer. But we would have vegetables, fertilizers and things like that. So we had fresh food to really, and when I go to visit my family in the island of Jamaica, I love my family in St. Elizabeth and in Manchester in the mountains. My family's still farming to this day. I got cousins with coffee farms, and they You know, I have other cousins that have all kind of vegetables, and they have they bring truckloads of produce to Kingston and Montego Bay every week, right? And it's a big industry for my family. It's been that way for generations. So I really believe in sustainability, and I believe cryptocurrency is another form of freedom and liberty that can help us be sustainable as a people. I do not believe it supports communism. I do not believe it will help Putin to evade, different sanctions levied against him. Why? Because he's trying to sell his oil. He needs trillions of dollars. He's not going to get that by holding Bitcoin. Yes, he'll be richer, but he's already rich. So him being richer doesn't matter. We're talking about the average person. Imagine the average person living in a communist state finally in another 10 years feeling like they have some economic freedom. Imagine what kind of uprisings may happen as a result of economic freedom in communist and socialist society. And trust me, I'm talking about it, but we know that China recognized it because that down Bitcoin mining in China. I want you guys to understand, Bitcoin mining used to be 97% run by Chinese companies. China recognized it was giving their people economic freedom, and they shut it down. And now 50% of Bitcoin mining is in North America, Canada, and the United States of America. What I'm sharing with you is that repoint, anyone who supports cryptocurrency, and I'm talking about Bitcoin primarily. The other ones, I mean, there's a lot of DeFi type of projects that are not supportive necessarily of freedom. Many of them are not supportive of consumers. So I think there's a balancing act, and a lot of people get confused in regards to, which ones to really support. And I totally agree. And I think that there's going to be a leveling of the playing field. And those cryptocurrencies that survive, this bear market into the next one, into the next, 10, 12 years from now, will be the cryptocurrencies of the future that will be part of our lives in one way, shape, or form. But remember, if you remember nothing from this talk today, there's a difference between centralized and decentralized currencies. When it's centralized, like fiat meaning your everyday US dollar, when it's centralized, it's different than decentralized. Decentralized means that you have freedom, right? Centralized does not mean that you have freedom, right? So the goal here is always to promote freedom where possible. And I'm telling you, these fully decentralized, autonomous cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin support freedom and democracy. It does not support socialism. And you're going to hear a lot of things, a lot of talk about, oh, we need a digital currency for America. I'm not a fan of that project. I think it's cool, but guess what? So does China. So does Russia. And when Russia, China, and America have something in common, I have a problem with it because it's not, Hopeton spending money. It's my private key and public key spending money, right? So there's transparency on that ledger in that regard. So don't get it confused because I still believe that the transparency does not, make it a bad thing. It's going to be interesting how regulation comes on the frontier, and it's going to be interesting how average people, and I'm talking about people, free people across the world, start to get economic benefit from participating in different cryptocurrency projects. I heard recently, and it was Sean that shared me, Cardano started to do lending in Africa. Did you hear that, April?
I'm so sorry. My phone keeps breaking up. You said something about in Africa and I couldn't hear the rest.
Oh, this was Cardano. It was Sean that shared it with me recently. Cardano started to do lending in Africa.
Wow.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Holding on to my Cardano.
Yeah, hold on to Cardano. I think, Cardano is a smart technology. There's a lot of smart technologies, guys. So don't be fooled, right? Remember, the time to invest, and this is not me saying this, I'm quoting, and you can look this quote up. I won't even tell you who said it. The time to invest is when the blood is in the streets. And I hate to say it that way, but it's a reality of economics, right? This is, yeah, and the blood is running in the streets now. A lot of people are fearful, and when people are fearful, it's time. I'm not telling you to not lose your humanity. The focus right now through some of these tough times to make some hard decisions, and some of these hard decisions. Again, I'm not telling you to invest money in cryptocurrency that you can't afford to do. That would be insane. I'm not telling you to do that, but again, if you are interested in strategies, my book link is at the top of the screen. You can click on that Amazon link and check out my book. The strategies that I'm promoting is that every family within the sound of my voice and beyond should have at least 1 million Satoshis. And people say, what is a Satoshi? A Satoshi is the basic form of Bitcoin, right? So it's like to a dollar. So have Satoshis, at least 1 million, right? Because what can you lose by having several $100s in cryptocurrency? I'm telling you that in the next 10 to 12 years, there'll be nothing but benefit for you. Look what happened over the past week with the price. There was a rocky challenge. It dipped to 30, low 30s, and it bounced today to what, 44? And I think we're pressing beyond that. What I'm sharing with you is that don't look at the short-term gains or losses. Really look at the long term. The long-term picture. We're so early in the evolution of cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin, that it's going to be really exciting. I'm really excited for all of us, and certainly look to answer any questions that may exist right now before I wrap up.
It's $440 for 1 million.
And you don't have to believe me, but my projection is that we're going to $1 per Satoshi. So 10 years from now, don't be mad at me because you were in the room when I told you that.
Absolutely.
Don't be mad at me 10, 12 years from now when a Satoshi is approaching $1 and you heard it here first, right? But you ignored that. You didn't put $1 into Bitcoin. And as we move into the future, you're like, wow, it's, we were talking with the Black Picasso, it was 44, right? And when it's 444 and 4,000,044, watch out. It's that's where we are, and that's where we're going. It's certainly a pleasure to spend some time with you guys. If there's no further questions, we'll definitely wrap up. It was, certainly nice, really kind of reflecting on these things. But don't be fooled. I know there's going to be a lot of. I'm really interested to hear what Biden has to say tonight. I bet my bottom dollar that there's going to be some mention of cryptocurrency in there. I bet you. I bet you there's going to be some cryptocurrency for sure. And he's definitely going to be talking about Ukraine and the support of Ukraine and against Putin. But there's going to be something again, of course, sanctions. But I want to see what the Fed is going to be talking about with regards to cryptocurrency. So, listen, don't have fear, but really understand that there's certain things that they can do and certain things they can't do. One thing that they can't do, and I will repeat as I wrap up, they cannot stop Bitcoin. It is, it would have to be regulation. and then it would have to be regulatory activity around some international effort to really shut it down. And you know, I'm not saying that regulators don't have the power to go after it, but you know, there's one thing about being an American and being in the land of the free and the home of the brave. You know, don't go after my property, don't go after my money, and don't go after my guns. Right? You know, it's true. It's true. We're Americans, right? You know, if somebody try to cook your house, what's going to happen? That's not going to be a pretty day for somebody. You know, this is my house. I have title to it, and you're going to try to take my house? What? You know, as long as I kept my paperwork up, I pay my taxes, you know, I cut my lawn, like, what are you trying to do? You better get off my property.
There was like a domain and all that stuff.
True. No, we know there's legal challenges, right? But my point to you.
Not in Texas, everywhere else.
But being an American, eminent domain is a real, I mean, we're talking legal challenges to the ownership of land and property. I'm telling you, they still need to fight all this kind of stuff. So, you know, we live in a time where property is really important. And knowledge is important. And we all just need to continue to share together. You know, it's wonderful to share with you guys every week. I look forward to you know, speaking with you guys. If you have any questions, certainly reach out. I did share those NFTs. Hopefully you've gotten your NFT. If you didn't get your